Hello, hello. It's Amber, and this is Skin Science Applied by Ethist. Today we are talking hydration versus oil versus moisture, understanding the systems skin actually runs on, and why skin behaves contradictorily when hydration, lipids, and the barrier are out of sync. Why oily skin can be dehydrated and dry skin can be overstimulated. One of the most persistent myths in skincare is that oil and hydration are the same thing. They're not. Dryness and dehydration are not the same thing. Dehydrated equals lacks water inside the skin, regardless of your oil. And dry equals lacks lipids that protect and seal that water. Skin health doesn't operate on a single system. It relies on two distinct but interdependent inputs to stay balanced. One, a hydration system. That means the water inside the skin. And two, a lipid and oil system. That's fats that seal and protect the skin. They serve different purposes. They are not separate layers you can point to. They are functional systems. Together, they build what we call the skin barrier, which you'll probably hear me refer to a lot. Hydration refers to water content in the skin. Water content is what keeps skin cells plump and functioning. Oil refers to what are known as lipids, and that slows water loss and protects the barrier. Lipids help seal that hydration in and protect the skin from external stressors. When hydration is low, skin feels tight, dull, or irritated, even if it's producing plenty of oil. And when lipids are depleted, water escapes more easily, inflammation rises, and skin becomes reactive. Moisture, now we're talking about a whole different thing, is the result of both of those systems working together. It's not a single ingredient or texture. It's a state of balance, which is why when hydration and lipids are misunderstood, or if they're treated as one, skin starts behaving in ways that feel confusing and contradictory. The systems at play, how they connect. The skin barrier. This is a structural system. The skin barrier is the physical structure created by hydration and lipids working together. It makes up the outermost layer of skin, which is also known as the stratum corneum. Skin cells are held together by lipids, ceramides, cholesterol, fatty acids, in a classic brick and mortar structure. So if you think of the skin like a brick wall, skin cells form the bricks, lipids form the mortar. Its job is simple but very critical. The skin barrier is to keep water in and keep irritants out. In fact, the skin barrier keeps your entire body in homeostasis, and it's quite fascinating to dive into. If you're interested in more information about the skin barrier, go to ethis.com and find the Skin Science blog. There is so much information there that you can read about and nerd out about. This structure, the skin barrier, cannot function without enough internal hydration and sufficient lipids to seal it. The skin microbiome. Now, this is a biological system. Sitting on top of the barrier is the skin microbiome. The skin microbiome is a living ecosystem of bacteria, fungi, and microorganisms on the skin surface. It helps to regulate immune responses, defend against pathogens, maintain the skin's slightly acidic pH, which is also known as the acid mantle. The microbiome is not part of the barrier structure, but it depends entirely on the barrier beneath it being intact and stable in order for it to be in symbiosis and working properly. And when the barrier weakens, the microbiome destabilizes. When the microbiome destabilizes, inflammation rises, which further weakens the barrier. And now you can see how you get caught in this vicious cycle. Here's some key clarifications, because I know this gets confusing. First, you have the hydration system. That helps to supply water inside the skin. Then you have the lipid system that seals and protects that water. Then we talked about the skin barrier, which is the actual structure that those two systems create together, that brick and mortar wall with skin cells and lipids. And then you have your microbiome, the living layer that relies on that structure, also known as the skin barrier. Hydration and lipids are not separate layers you can point to. They're functional inputs. They're not separate. Um, they're separate conceptually in terms of system, but they're not, again, something that is tangible like a cell versus lipid. When they work together, they create a larger system, which is again known as the skin barrier. And on top of that barrier sits another system entirely, which is the skin microbiome. So different levels, different jobs, but at the end of the day, one connected ecosystem. Why skin starts acting confused? So when hydration, lipids, and the microbiome are treated as one system, or when one is prioritized at the expense of the others, problems start compounding. This is where a lot of people go wrong because most people think dry equals needs water. Oily, oh, I have too much oil. I don't need a moisturizer. Acne, oh, it's just because of too much oil. Sensitive, oh, that's an overactive immune response. And it's probably due to some kind of allergy or whatever, when in fact it's usually driven by barrier damage. Dryness does not always equal dehydration. Acne does not always equal oiliness. And sensitive does not always equal allergy or inherently fragile. In fact, sensitive is often sensitized, and that's a whole other ballgame that we would need to get into. But again, at this.com, if you want to find out more about that. Oily yet dry, dehydrated, oily skin. All right. So if we're talking about oily yet dry, this is like a specific skin type. Harsh cleansers or over cleansing strip surface oil to fix acne. But they also, unquote, fix, by the way. So I know I just realized that I'm like also in audio. So harsh cleansers or over cleansing strip surface oil to quote fix acne. But they also damage necessary barrier lipids. The result, water escapes and causes dehydration. And skin senses stress, and that oil production increases. Acne worsens while flaking and tightness appear. And also, by the way, I kind of just want to give a caveat to this example in general because the idea is that oftentimes people think that harsh cleansers or over cleansing stripping surface oil is going to quote fix their acne, but it's not the truth. More than likely, you need to stop over aggressively stripping your skin if you want your acne to go away. Again, there's more specific acne information on the site as well if you want to dive into acne specifically. So what we were just describing there isn't a contradictory behavior, it's overcompensation. So oily skin is often assumed to be well moisturized, quote. But in reality, oil production is not a reliable indicator of hydration unless you're using it as a barometer for dehydration. In fact, this is why very oily people often stay oily. They believe incorrectly that they don't need a moisturizer because they already have too much oil. Oily people often don't like the feel of moisturizers due to the amount of oil their skin produces, but the only thing that is going to stop overproducing oil is by increasing hydration. And this is why it took me so long to create the At This moisturizer. We wanted to make sure it felt comfortable to everyone because oily people need moisturizer too. When skin lacks water, It often compensates by producing more oil as a protective response. That oil sits on the surface, but it doesn't resolve the underlying dehydration. The result is skin that looks shiny but feels tight, congested, or inflamed underneath. And that is why many people with oily skin experience breakouts that worsen with harsh cleansers, increased shine midday, and irritation despite oil control products. The issue isn't excess oil, it is a lack of hydration paired with a stress barrier that's overcompensating with oil. From here, oily skin can progress. Over time, continued stripping can push skin into a dry, inflamed, acne prone state. All right, so let's talk about dry but acne prone. Strong acne treatments like salicylic acid or benzoyl peroxide, etc., target bacteria aggressively, but they don't discriminate. They disrupt the microbiome, they weaken the lipid barrier, and they increase inflammation. A compromised barrier cannot defend itself properly, making skin more reactive, more inflamed, and often more acne prone, despite harsher treatment. Over cleansing and aggressive exfoliation don't train the skin to produce oil, they signal stress. When the barrier is disrupted and hydration drops, the skin responds defensively by increasing sebum production in an attempt to protect itself, and that creates a cycle. Strip the skin, it gets dehydrated, it overproduces oil. Here we go, we're going to strip it again. And the more aggressively oil is removed, the harder the skin works to replace it. And if this keeps going long enough, oil production can collapse, leaving skin functionally dry. And that doesn't mean oil disappears entirely, but that the healthy lipid production and barrier signaling break down, leaving the skin structurally dry. Balancing oil production doesn't start with removing oil. It starts with restoring hydration and supporting the barrier so the skin no longer feels threatened. Shiny, sensitive, and inflamed skin. This pattern is often mistaken for what someone might say is a healthy glow or well moisturized skin. It's not. Shiny, sensitive, which I use in quotations because, again, I think that term is just so stripped down and misunderstood as it's often sensitized and inflamed. So, shiny, sensitive, quote, inflamed skin usually means lipids are present, but regulation is gone. So, here's what's happening: the hydration system is impaired, water isn't being held properly, the barrier is stressed, so that means permeability is increasing, and things are getting into the skin and into the body that shouldn't be. Inflammation rises. That is causing blood flow to increase near the surface. And then oil and inclusives sit on top, creating a shine, but it's not true resilience. The result is skin that looks glossy, yet feels warm, reactive, easily flushes, and is prone to sticking or redness. This is common in routines that rely heavily on frequent actives, aggressive exfoliation, and what some might think are, quote, repair products. And those are all being layered on top of each other, and then they're causing this unresolved inflammation. Oil can mask dehydration. Shine can hide barrier stress. Inflamed skin reflects light differently, which is why it can look luminous while actively breaking down underneath. So, why this keeps getting missed? Because inflammation isn't dryness and it isn't oiliness either. It's a signal problem. When the barrier is compromised and the microbiome is destabilized, the immune system stays switched on. Skin stays shiny, red, and reactive, not because it's well supported, but because it's overstimulated. Recapping the underlying problems. So, again, we talked about oily but dehydrated skin. That is water loss and oil overcompensation. Dry but acne prone, that's coming from lipid deficiency, barrier collapse, and immune overreaction. And shiny, quote, sensitive and inflamed skin is overstimulation, of the skin and chronic signaling. Different symptoms, but the same root issue. The systems are out of sync. So then you get the irritation loop. Barrier damage disrupts the microbiome. Microbiome imbalance increases inflammation, and inflammation further weakens the barrier. That cycle repeats until something changes. And that's how you end up oily and tight, or dry and breaking out, or shiny, sensitive, and inflamed. Your skin isn't difficult, its systems are just not being treated separately and in the right ways. And we're not creating the right environment in order for those biological systems to optimally function. When we collapse all of these states into dry or oily or acne prone, we treat the wrong system and our skin compensates. And this is why strong skin is more important than clear skin or any given goal oriented skin you're looking for. More youthful, more dewy, etc. You don't want to treat the issues, so to speak, because all of the issues are rooted in the same problems within the biological systems. So when you set up biological systems in a way that allows them to flourish, you're going to get better results. And that's exactly what Ethis does. It creates an optimal environment for your skin in order for you to get the results that you're really looking for. Heavy doesn't mean effective. On the other end of the spectrum, you have skin that feels dry or sensitized, and it's often overloaded with heavy creams and oils in an attempt to fix this dryness. But heaviness alone doesn't equal effectiveness. Applying thick layers of oil to dehydrated skin can temporarily soften the surface, but without adequate hydration underneath, the skin can't function optimally. Occluding dry skin without addressing water content can actually trap inflammation and worsen sensitivity over time. And this is why some people feel greasy and dry at the same time, or notice that heavier products make their skin feel congested rather than nourished. Because effective skincare isn't about more weight, it's about the right balance, which goes exactly right back to what I was just saying about our systems and allowing our biological systems to naturally function in the best way possible. So, what does balance actually look like? Well, balanced skin receives hydration to support cellular function. We give it lipids to protect and seal, and we give consistency to the skin to allow systems to normalize. And when hydration and lipid support are properly aligned, guess what? Our oil production stabilizes. Our skin feels calmer, it's not reactive, shine becomes manageable, dryness resolves without heaviness. This is also why routines built around replenishment, like Ethis, nourishing the environment in which the skin needs to operate, tend to feel surprisingly simple once they're working. You don't need 12 steps. You need a good minimalist routine that is actually giving back to the skin what it needs. And that means there's less chasing, less correcting, and less need to constantly intervene. So, how do we fix all this confusion? Because, man, I know I threw a lot at you in this one. And there's so many different things to know and understand. So, if you're feeling confused, don't feel bad. Because, like I said in the beginning, I mean, even when we're talking about the systems, there's, so many different things that seem like they're the same because the words are similar, the verbiage is similar. And so it can get really convoluted really quickly. But of course, if you have questions, always feel free to reach out. So the goal isn't to attack the symptoms. Like I said, it's not to say, I want clear skin. I want younger looking skin. I want, to get rid of this hyperpigmentation and not make it any worse. It is to restore balance across your systems and to provide an environment in which your skin is able to naturally operate in the best possible way. So you have to stop over cleansing and over exfoliating. You need a gentle pH balanced cleanser like the Clarity Cleanse that preserves lipids and microbial diversity. You need to rebuild the barrier. You have to support your hydration and you have to support your oil, your lipids with ingredients like humectants, ceramides, and biomimetic skin identical oils like jojoba, which is in our Holy Grail facial oil. You need to support the microbiome. The microbiome does not need to be forced into balance. It needs a stable barrier. It needs consistent hydration and intact lipid signaling first and foremost. You have to protect that acid mantle. A slightly acidic pH makes it harder for harmful bacteria to thrive. So, just to give you an idea of that, all of these things that we're talking about, when you allow your microbiome to be in symbiosis, you're giving it every single thing that it needs. You're keeping all of that pH at the right acidity in order for there to be an environment where harmful bacteria do not live. And you need to simplify, especially if your skin is feeling confused. If not just you are feeling confused at this point, because we've talked about so many things, but your skin actually feels like it's confused and overwhelmed, and you're having, different issues go on constantly. It's because your skin is likely overwhelmed with actives and all different kinds of products, or trying too many things, or lack of consistency, etc. You need fewer products that are biologically appropriate for your skin. They need to be used consistently. And every single time, if you use something like Ethist, which is a biological skincare designed using our Champagne standard, which is a proprietary framework for eliminating all kinds of harsh toxins, over 3,200 of them, and actually giving back to your skin in order to allow your skin systems to work in the way that they need to, it will outperform aggressive routines every single time. I'm actually working on a thesis about skin and how I don't even believe it ages. I believe that it just responds to the environmental conditions that you set up for it. And there is a lot of science that backs this. It's kind of mind blowing, but it's the same concept. You don't have to attack the skin. You don't have to be aggressive with your routine. You just have to provide an environment for it in order for it to do its thing. Your skin already knows what to do. It already knows how to build collagen. It already knows how to keep things going. It already knows, what it needs to do in order to protect you and keep you in homeostasis. You just have to give it the right environment. So, oily skin doesn't mean that your skin is hydrated. Dry skin doesn't mean that you have lipid deficient skin. Heavy products aren't inherently better. Skin doesn't need to be forced into balance. It needs the right conditions that allow balance to return. And that's where effective skincare actually begins. So, what's next? Once hydration and lipid balance are understood, the next question becomes obvious in my mind. What happens when those systems are overstimulated instead of supported? Well, more to come, I suppose.